Welcome to day 152. We are continuing in Proverbs with chapters 19 to 21 and Romans chapter 3. So chapter 19 is talking about money and discipline. I have to say, when I think about our world today, the group of people that seem to be most lifted up as far as living with discipline are athletes, especially professional athletes or Olympic athletes. And that's where we most often admire discipline. I do see it sometimes. We have people who respect the Dalai Lama and some of the people in the Buddhist or Hindu traditions for some of the discipline that they show. But it seems like we don't often see discipline in the areas of spirituality or intellectual and academic stuff, the way we lift up discipline in athletics. And I think that's something we can think of for ourselves. To be balanced in our own personal lives, we need to take care of our physical health, our emotional health, our intellectual health, and our spiritual health. And we need to be disciplined in all four areas to be balanced and healthy. One of the things that I just want to highlight that frequently comes up through Proverbs is that while money might be a blessing or a windfall that comes from being wise, it is clear that the author thinks the most important thing is to be wise, even if you end up being poor. Money itself is not the root of wisdom, and money itself is not the goal that you should be working towards. The goal is to be connected to God and to be living with the wisdom of God in your life. And that may or may not come with earthly riches, but it is better to be wise than it is to be rich. Chapter 20 is a diverse chapter that goes all over the place. There's a number of metaphors that are used to highlight the instructions, such as a lion, water, gold, chaff of grain. And it makes me think, if we were to be instructing someone in wisdom, maybe it's kids, maybe it's someone we're mentoring, what are the physical items in our lives that we could use to illustrate God's plan and God's idea of wisdom to the people around us today? Chapter 21 highlights wicked behavior and choices, and it seems like quite a long laundry list of stuff that we should not be doing. Now, it is easy to say, yeah, this isn't me, when you look at the entire chapter. But I think the challenge for us as we're going through is, just like in the last chapter, underline the verses that kind of stick out to us. Underline the ones where we start kind of feeling like, maybe this one is something I'm having trouble with, because this is where we can allow the Holy Spirit to give us some insight as to the things that we are actually doing that we need to change. Of course, then the real question is, are we willing to change, which is always a hard one for most of us. As we look at Romans chapter 13, this is a tough chapter. And there's been a lot of people with a lot of opinions and a lot of interpretations going in a variety of directions over the centuries. I just want to say that this is not a complete teaching on religion and government. It sounds pretty cut and dried and an open and shut case, but Paul does speak on this in other places as well. So this isn't the only place with wisdom from Paul. And I want us to make sure that there is no call here for an unthinking obedience to the government. While it does sound in some clauses, some phrases, that Paul really wants us to fall in line with the government, we are not to do that if the government is not in line with God's will. And so we have to question leaders when they don't follow God's plan, when they are not building up God's kingdom. And this can sometimes put us in some really difficult places and cause us to have to face some really difficult decisions. But as Paul points out, that love fulfills the law. And how do we live in this? Loving your neighbor. Don't do anything that hurts someone else. If you have a decision, if the government's doing something that hurts someone else, we need to rethink that. There's a little comment here about don't be in debt, and there's a number of Christians that take this very seriously. There are churches that don't start a building project without raising all the money first. There are Christians that are against having any personal debt of any kind. So it is something to think about, because easy debt is something that's very big in our culture right now. And this is one area where a lot of Christians believe there's a lot of wisdom in reducing our reliance on debt. And then the last section is the day near. Are we living like we expect Jesus to arrive soon? Are we making choices that look good in daylight? Um, we should really be going with Jesus and setting aside our selfish desires and making decisions that we would feel comfortable having anyone look at in the brightness of daylight. Um, that is not an easy way to live, but there is a lot of wisdom in it. And following a life of discipline in your journey with Jesus has definitely brought a lot of peace and joy and comfort to a lot of people. So this is a chapter that kind of has some tough stuff in it, but I think sometimes the wisdom in this chapter might actually help you in your daily lives and might bring you into a closer relationship with Jesus. So good luck wrestling with this chapter, and we'll see you next time.